Hi, my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm declaring my independence. Independence from what? Why, negative thoughts and energy, of course. Chief among them, hate, division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my independence report. And welcome everybody to my independence report. We're gonna hope and pray that this goes better than the last one, which was like all of a sudden we just all froze up, and apparently I had computer issues with that one. So I owe Laura a debt of gratitude for coming on, and we're gonna have to rebook her because the information that she was providing was really, really cool. And but today we've also got a very fun gentleman with us who is a guy that just loves life, and he loves to get out there and enjoy himself, and he even captained that ship that's behind us. It looks remarkably like a iceberg. Well, maybe not, but
yeah. Well, when you mentioned Frozen, you couldn't have made a more appropriate segue.
That is so true. Mitch Krayton from KraytonTravel.com is with us. How are you today, sir?
I am fantastic. Just come back from the end of the Earth, which is a significant journey from the United States, and being in Antarctica is one of those bucket list destinations, and I am thrilled that I can check the seventh continent off of my bucket list.
And you actually went to a place where it's really, really, really cold down there.
Well, some people say it's super cool to visit.
Well, super cool and cold, which would keep me from visiting there. But then you took a group of people down there, didn't you?
Well, I was there with about 140 people on a ship that's about 6 months old, and it has got every one of the latest amenities you can imagine. It is computer-controlled navigation system, and gosh, I'm grateful for that. We had, as you go from Argentina south into Antarctica, you have to cross the Drake Passage. And what makes the Drake Passage one of the most unique water passages in the world is that you have the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean coming together with no land interfering. There are no underground land formations interfering. And so the wind whips across the top, the two currents battle each other, and in each direction, well, going south, we had it fairly mild. We had from 4 to 15-foot swells. But coming back, we had wonderful weather in Antarctica, but we had to race back because there was a storm due. And of course, we got in the storm. So imagine that iceberg that you see behind me is about 3 stories tall. And that's about a 30-foot wave. And we had from 17 to 30-foot waves for about 2 days.
Oh, did you get seasick?
No, many on board got seasick, but there's this miraculous little patch that they put behind your ear, and it has a prescription medicine in it, and miraculously never got sick.
But you couldn't move very well, could you? Because wasn't it like you would start walking across the room and you'd end up on the floor suddenly?
Well, remember I said the ship had computer stabilization, so yes, the ship was doing this, but it should have been doing this. And we had a couple of fun times. We were sitting down for dinner, and all of a sudden, our food just slid off the table, which was fun for me, but not such a fun thing for all the staff that was serving the food.
Well, so I got to ask you because and another ship comes to mind that has to do with icebergs and rough seas and stuff, and that was the Titanic. Did you ever think that maybe you were gonna someday somebody was gonna find you at the bottom of the sea?
No. Modern technology. It was a triple hulled vessel, like I said, brand new technology. It had the ability to break through surface ice. Certainly, it wouldn't be a good battle component for an iceberg, but it had triple radar and uh, sonar. So it can see what's above and below the water and navigate through it. So even though it was rough seas, the navigational crew had the latest in technology, and we never touched ice that I'm aware of. So and the Drake Passage really has no ice. It's when you get into the peninsula of Antarctica that the ice pretty much forms. Once you get into the Drake Passage, there weren't many evidences of ice. It was just open sea.
Well, and that was way back when, 200 years, 300 years ago. That was how they used to navigate if they wanted to get around. Because remember, there was no Suez Canal or any of that kind of stuff. So if they wanted to go from the East Coast of the United States to the West Coast of the United States, they'd have to go all the way down and go through that passage and up the other side. And that was a dangerous time back then.
That was the entire rationale for the Panama Canal. And
Yeah.
the Panama Canal made everybody avoid that. But you have to think back on the early explorers, and we got lots of interesting education about Shackleton and about Amundsen in their race to be the first to the South Pole. And they were in wooden sailing ships. Mind you, no motor, no navigation equipment. We were wearing the latest in parka technology. The ship was air conditioned, so it was heated, even though outside it was zero, inside it was comfortable. And but I can't imagine the early explorers in a three-masted sailing vessel going through these rough seas, not knowing where they're going to go. It's about a 300 nautical miles from Ushuaia, Argentina, to the Antarctic Peninsula, and there's just no indicators. There's no visual indicators of anything until you see the early land of Antarctica. And the Antarctic Peninsula, it's such a tiny part of Antarctica. What most people don't understand is that Antarctica is so large, it would fit North America, South America, Asia, and Europe completely inside and still have room left over.
Really? You look at a map or you look at a globe and it doesn't look like it's all that big, but
It
that's
is
amazing.
it is ginormous, and to get to the South Pole, you can't do it by water. So they all had to get off, and they had to figure out a way to get to the actual South Pole, where you've got the latitude and longitude lines coming together to be at the South Pole. And there was a race between Britain and Shackelford and Norway and Amundsen, and they had completely different approaches. Shackelford brought Icelandic horses and mechanized sleds, neither of which worked very well. So the men had to pull all the equipment. And Amundsen brought dogs and regular sleds, and he got there first.
Because he was smarter.
Well, nobody knew. You had no history.
Yeah, that's so
But
when you get
yeah,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I'm just saying that when you talk about an expedition, a cruise like this, you don't think about what it takes to get there and to come back from there and all the navigational skills to do that. And then once you get there, it's like being in a sci-fi movie but it's real. The landscape is something only you can find in Antarctica. Thousands of penguins, seals, birds flying all over. The ice is a color blue that cannot be described, and that's because when the tight ice compacts, all the light gets absorbed except this one shade of blue, and it just you can see behind me. It's sort of like a an aqua blue, but it's much more intense in real life. And so we got off and hiked along several coves and several islands in Antarctica, and because the animals have 100% protection, you can't get more than 15 feet to them. They have no natural fear, so you can just sit there and watch penguins do their thing, and watch birds fly in and out and do their thing, and the seals don't move. It was just a wonderland, and it was something that was vigorous, and I'm glad I did it. And anybody that it puts off bucket list things like that is denying themselves the discovery. And here's the irony: you go to a place that actually is not owned by anybody. There's a treaty where 12 countries have 24 expedition and research stations in Antarctica, and there's no military allowed. They're not allowed to have any weapons there, but they all collaborate. There's no currency, there's no rule of law. There are two postal boxes that handle like 70,000 pieces of mail, but it depends on where you are as to what postage you use to get it sent. I unfortunately didn't go to either of those post offices, so I couldn't send myself a letter from Antarctica. But I was there, and here I am on the shirt with my fellow penguins. So there you
That's
go.
that's pretty remarkable. That I would not have thought going to Antarctica would be. It certainly wouldn't be on my bucket list. Only because you have to have a certain intestinal fortitude to be able to want to go all that way and stuff. Are there polar bears down there too?
No, polar bears are in the north.
That's what I
There are
thought.
no polar bears in the south. So the biggest distinction between the Arctic and the Antarctic is actually a landmass that has ice and snow on it. The Arctic is water that is just ice on top of it. So you have different flora, different fauna, and you have to do both. But I would say go north first. Go to Alaska, go to Norway and Svalbard, and see the Arctic North, and do that before you see Antarctica, because there just are no icebergs the size like you see behind me. I mean, this thing was about twice the length of our ship, and 30 feet tall, and it went down below water. I couldn't tell, but you could see it was deep underwater. So this is called a tabular iceberg. It's a table of ice.
Now, have they talked about, or did you talk about during your trip, um, what's happening to the ice in both um, Antarctica and Arctica? They're losing a great deal of
Well,
ice.
there is severe concern about the welfare of the environment, and there is an association that regulates how many people can visit and for how long. That anything you take, you have to bring out. So you're not allowed to bring food. You're not allowed to do anything. You can take a camera with take pictures, but you can't leave anything behind. And so the environment down there is really well protected. But yeah, it is suffering from global warming, and what happens in Antarctica when it goes to winter, there is a shelf of Antarctica that expands, almost becomes twice its size, and then in the summer, which is the opposite of our season. So I went in winter, which is the Antarctic summer. It shrinks back to where the landmass is, and so that's a natural occurrence. But they are finding that the thickness of the ice is getting a little thinner. And you can imagine if enough ice like that started to melt, the ocean would start to rise, and it would be a catastrophic event. So they're looking at Antarctica and looking for signals. They are also drilling deep to understand what chemicals and what life forms existed tens of thousands of years ago. And here, where I am in Denver, there is actually a national ice research repository. They have a 30-degree below freezer, and they come with these tubes of ice. And you wouldn't think you could see much, but when you see one, you can actually see silt and lines along the timeline. And so they can determine, was there a dust storm? Was there a volcanic eruption? It's miraculous science, totally miraculous science. But I'm not a scientist. I'm a traveler. I'm a senior. I love life, and what travel does for me, and I think this is what we want to convey to people, is that it allows us to take a break from our everyday. No matter how difficult you may think living is, go outside your normal zone of contact. And it could be just, a couple states away. It could be to another country. It could be to another continent. And you will find that we're all humans. We all have issues and concerns, but the culture, the food, the music, the art, the wilderness, animals, all of these things just enrich you, and you come back with such an energy. And then all of your problems don't seem so big.
Well, wasn't it you that I was talking to that in your travels you have met people who were, for lack of a better term, dirt poor and had nothing, but were happy?
If you go around the world and you see nations that are not wealthy and they don't have distractions like social media, broadcast media, all of the hoopla, they live. I've been to Vietnam and I've been to lots of places where people live on the earth. And so long as they have their land and their cow, and they can be in peace and they can grow their fruits and vegetables and then express themselves with local art, so they can grow silk with silkworms and then weave silk for export and do it in their clothing. It is miraculous to see that nobody complains. You know, they have what they have and their life is okay. And so one of the lessons it has taught me is that what you have is not the secret to a healthy life. It's the people in your life, it's your relationships, it's your experiences, and wealth has nothing to do with an extended family or an active community of people. I mean, obviously here there's no permanent residence. The people that go to the research stations, they're there for just 6, 9, 12 months. But when you go to a place like a Vietnam, and the marketplaces are out in the wild, fresh fish, and they'll take it and they'll fillet it for you right there. You want a coconut, they crack it in half and they grind the meat out of the coconut, put it in a plastic bag, and there you go. So you're walking among your community who have just gathered this food fresh, and nobody complains. And we have so much abundance when we get back home, when the waste that we throw away, oh my gosh. But we take a lot for granted. We take running water for granted. uh, I was in a five-star hotel in Vietnam, and there was a big brass plaque right over the sink that said, do not drink the water. Five-star hotel, because the water is not drinkable, so they provided bottled water. And you learn to appreciate the things that we just completely, roads that are paved, street lights that come on every night. All of those things don't exist around the world. And it just humbles you, and you just come back and you go, as tough as my life might have been in my perception, I can push it through. I'll make it through. And
Absolutely.
that's what travel teaches us, Kevin. And so
Yeah.
I'm an advocate for travel. And again, the word vacation means vacate. Get out of your rut. Get out of your bubble. Recreation. Recreate yourself. Do something that will re-energize you with new environment, new food, new music, new art, visiting new places. I mean, here in this country we have stores. It doesn't matter what city you go to, you find the same stores. But when you go to other countries, you don't know those stores. You see product names you've never seen before. A lot of handmade material. All of that's absolutely fantastic. And so we've grown up from being an agrarian nation where we grew our own food to a manufacturing nation. Now we're an information nation, services nation, and that's all wonderful. But the thing we have to bear in mind is that, and this is where people get confused, their work is their life. And I say, no, you don't live to work, you work to live. Excuse me. So, what you produce, what you generate, whether you're an employee or you're an entrepreneur or an artisan, you're generating enough wealth so that then you can live a happy, healthy, and productive life. And that's
So,
why it isn't what you have. Having 25 cars or having a bicycle, you can still get from point A to point B.
and you can only drive one thing at a time.
And you only drive one thing at a time.
You know,
Yeah.
what's interesting, because I was talking to somebody else about Vietnam, and my perception would be that since we fought a war with them, and it wasn't all that long ago, and we were there for 13 years, and over 1 million Vietnamese were killed, and Agent Orange was all over the place. So there's cancer, and there's my perception would be that we would be the hated people, but this gentleman was telling me that's just not the case.
Well, I'll confirm that. They mostly are of the Buddhist faith, and they live in the moment. And so I'll give you an example. I went to the Vietnam War Museum, and you would expect, as you just said, the descriptions of the photographs would be the Americans did this, the West did that, the French did this before the Americans, and on and on and on. And it was very objective. On this day, this was bombed. On this day, there was a movement of people into this territory, and 75 people were captured. And I kid you not, they had John McCain's flight suit in a venerable place, and they honored him and respected him because he wouldn't use his position to get released early. And they, to this day, consider him an amazing individual because of that. So, what you learn is that people, you think one way, but then you go and you have a conversation and you have a glass of tea. You learn. I took a cooking class in Ho Chi Minh City, and you learn how people eat and how food is such a critical part of a family. And you realize all the stuff that we get down and dirty about, most of the world doesn't care. Now, that's not to say that Vietnam isn't ruled by a communist regime. That's not to say that there are not very wealthy people coming in and, taking and building high level resorts and things like that. But one of the Vietnamese people, and one of our tour guides when I was there, he was in his early 30s. And he said, here's the way we figure it. We don't care who runs the country, just as long as they let us lead our lives. If they start interfering with letting us lead our lives, we'll get rid of them too.
Well,
So,
and that really is a great way to look at life. So in looking at people and
mhm.
people from different cultures and people that look different than ourselves, it really behooves us all to go visit these different cultures, because then we realize we're all much more similar than we are different.
I have to tell you that's 100%. And people will say, "Oh, well, I would never eat this because it's an insect," or "I would never eat that." And there's a whole population of people that eat that. Why wouldn't you give it a try? There was a whole time I would never eat like raw shrimp on a sushi bar. And one time I gave it a try. I go, dang, that was really good. So if you don't open yourself up to the possibility, you don't have to eat it forever, but at least say you tried it. And if you don't like it, be polite, but at least say, yeah, I tried it. The street food is always the best. And, you know, uh, you can always find a good place to eat. You can always find historical, floral um, places of interest. And I would always say, if you can, go with a guide, especially if it's in a land that doesn't speak your language. Um, and like Vietnam, they speak Vietnamese, they speak French, but they speak English.
Hmm.
So the thing is, you just want to learn respect, and you learn to say hello and goodbye and please and thank you in every language that you go to. And the first thing they say is, "What part of the United States are you from?" I did that in Paris the very first time because I heard this reputation that Americans are not liked in Paris. I can share with you a story. I was in Paris for a conference, and one of my colleagues and I, we went down to the Chartres Cathedral, which is in the central part of France. And when we got to the Chartres Cathedral, we had an organ concert in the organ of the Chartres Cathedral, and we started to walk around, and we were looking, and we said, "Those are American GIs and American Jeeps. What is that?" And so we walked down there, and they said, "Oh, you're from America. We'll buy you a beer." And came to discover that the French underground was based in Chartres. And when the United States had paratroopers and gliders land to help the underground, it was in Chartres. And every year they memorialize that landing and celebrate the Americans coming to the aid of France. Now, if you've never heard that story, shame on us. But to hear it from French people wearing American GI fatigues and American Jeeps, and they play out this story, wow, did my whole view of French people change?
Oh, sure.
And you're not going to find that in a book. You're just not.
No,
And
you got to go to the ground level if you're going
oh
to.
yeah,
See, one on my, I will tell you what's on my bucket list, and
yeah,
that is, my son is recently been stationed. He's in the Air Force, been
okay.
stationed in England, and so on my bucket list is I want to go to England, but what I want to do there, other than of course go to Liverpool, because that's where the Beatles were and all of that. But
I'll see your picture walking across. Yes.
that's what I'm going to get. That's exactly. But more so, I want to go to the local tabs, the local pubs, where the folks just hang out and just watch people and watch, because from what I understand, they're a lot of fun and they're also different. Australia, if they didn't have so many snakes, I would go down there too. But uh, they,
Well, I'll tell you my England story. The first time I was in London, the old city, which is the banking district, isn't open on the weekends. So I went to a pub there, and there was a gentleman who worked for Lloyd's Bank. He said, "You're American? Here, wow." would you mind joining me? We'll take the train. I live in this suburb, and I'll show you. I have satellite photographs of America. If you can point this out and do this, and then we'll go to my dinner pub, and then we'll go to my drinking pub. And we hired this taxi, and this guy stayed with us the whole time. And half the time he was riding on the road, and half the time he was riding in the street. Hey, I was traveling with a local, and you get into the pub and people will buy you a pint, and they're playing darts, and they're playing the little penny game. You hit a penny, it's sort of like shuffleboard, and they're just having a great time. And this guy was in awe with America and took me around to see a lifestyle. And again, you're not going to find that in a book. And it was all because I was in a pub, and I struck up a conversation with this young man, and oh my God, I'm telling you about it 30 years later. These are experiences that you can't spend away. I try and tell some of my peers, I said, you go with your grandson, go with your niece and nephew, and take them on a trip. Oh no, I have to send them to college. They need help buying a car. And I said, once the car's 5 years old and they trade it in, they'll never remember you. But if you go on a trip with them and they understand you can laugh and you can swim and you can be interested in things that they're interested in, that will be a memory that is indelible. It will stay with them in perpetuity. They can't spend it. They can't bankrupt it. They can't do any. It's going to be with them. And when I put it that way, they go, oh my God, yes. And so they have multi-generational trips now where the parents and the grandparents and the grandkids are now going together, and they're learning that grandpa can laugh. They're learning, it's not just meet them for the holiday dinner and see the same, usual suspects. These are human beings in your family. I never knew that. And then you go and you see, like if you're Irish and you take the family to Ireland and you start learning a bit about your roots, suddenly you become a better, richer person because you've made contact with what Ireland means. And I mean, there are tours now that'll do your ancestry. There are tours that'll do, music, all kinds of things that you can do to enrich the family history. You can travel as a solo person. If you happen to be an artist and want to, just take your canvas and your charcoals and go, there are plenty of ways that you can do that, but you're enriching your life. You come back home with an experience and a skill. Nobody can take that away from you. I mean, you could lose all your money, but all of those stories will play in your head. And the biggest significant thing, I lost my wife several years ago, rather suddenly, and she was in intensive care, and you see other people come and go in intensive care, and you learn that people at a certain age, they are at end of life, and I find that they have two paths. They have the angry, bitter, regretful, ugh, everything about them is they've been victimized. And then you have this person over here who has family, talks about wonderful experiences, and you never hear money. It's only about what I've been involved with, the people I've known, the experiences that I've had. And so I try to tell people, go on this list, get as many experiences, get as much joy in your life, meet as many people. I mean, I was on a ship with, 140 people, and I made new friends with probably a dozen of them, and they live all over the world. I would have never done that and I had to go down to the end of the earth for that, right? Land's End. So that's how you make real friends. It's not on Facebook with 50,000 likes. You don't know those people. But when you actually sit down and you have, a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, enjoy a gelato, sit down and they invite you to their home for a meal. Many countries, that is the way they are grateful for your visit. Well, come to my home. Have you had enough to eat? I mean, the greeting in Chinese, have you eaten?
Oh,
That's
really?
how they say that's how they say hello. Have you eaten?
See, now again, that's not something you'll ever find in a book.
No, no. And so the world is a big place. There's 184 countries that of which maybe four you wouldn't want to visit right now. Maybe two more. Now they got Ukraine and Russia messed up, but you got Syria, North Korea. I mean, yeah, but think about all the other places all around the world with those different cultures. And do you have to be a millionaire to go? No, no. Um, you just have to plan for it like anything else. If you put aside whatever you get your pay, you take and have $200 swept out of every paycheck, and you come back, and now 52 weeks later, you've got a couple $1,000s in there, right? So you save up for a couple of years, you got enough money to pay for a trip in advance, so you don't have to go and take a trip and come back with overwhelming debt. It's just focus. Where would you want to go to England? And it's like I hear a lot of people, I want to go to the United States. So how many days do I need to go to Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and Florida?
Oh, brother.
And I go, how many days? Pick one. You know, uh,
Yep.
you can't do it in one trip. Don't even think about it. So when you say you want to go to England, you want to go to Liverpool. Well, Liverpool is in the Midlands. England is to the south. So you're going to want to see something of London. I meant London. I think London is so you're going to want to see what attracts you about London. It could be the Royals, it could be the art galleries, it could be just the amazing history of the empire and how it came to be and how it shrank back. It could be all of the inventions and discoveries, all the naval information. It could be you go to the Royal Observatory to learn about the prime meridian. I mean, there's fascinating things that appeal to everybody in every walk of life. You've got music, art, crazy. But now you go to Liverpool. Liverpool is an industrial town that had the Beatles not come from there, you probably wouldn't even know how to pronounce it.
True.
But now it is thriving because you know where Strawberry Fields are. You
Yep.
know where Penny Lane is. And all you had was a couple of lads talking about their hometown with brilliance of how to put that to music. So that's how art and music have attracted you to make you want to go to Liverpool and walk across that crosswalk. But I will tell you that there are what they call blue badge guides, and the blue badge comes from on the walls of all the buildings. You will see historical markers. Guides go to school just like the taxi drivers do, and they learn where all those cultural things are. And you hire a guide for a day or two, and you tell them what you're looking for, and you'll come away with a college education. But it'll be fun, and it'll be all about you.
And by the way, we're talking with Mitch from CraytonTravel.com, and we want to talk about your travel agency and how
Thank
you
you.
help people to enjoy their dreams. Because I will tell you that, and the last hour I was talking to someone that has worked in hospice a lot and the end of life
Mm.
care, and the most common theme, and I know that you know this, the most common theme throughout humanity is I wish I had done more, not tried to make so much money, but I wish I had lived my life more and I didn't have the regrets that I have about family and friends and going to see things and living your life experientially, which is much more important than living it from a bank book and working 80 hours a week, because at the end of the day none of that matters. It's the relationships that we have and the experience.
When you die, you can't put your 50 cars in the grave, and nobody cares. And so that just means you have the burden now of redistributing your wealth to somebody that you may or may not know. So I don't regret anybody being wealthy. That's fine. But getting getting to there and not living a life, that I have a problem with. Why do you accumulate all the wealth if you won't enjoy it? If you won't
E-
let that wealth let you live?
Exactly. Now let's talk about your company. How can you help somebody learn to travel around the world and enjoy their bucket list and do all of that?
Well, I work with people mainly over 50. So that would be C-level executives, that would be semi-retirees, retirees. It could be a multi-generation. My focus is on small ship cruising. I know most of the people have seen the commercials for the mega ships, and they're perfectly fine. And they usually go to the Caribbean, or they'll go to Alaska, or they'll go down to Mexico. But there's much more to the world than that. And so there are river cruise ships, expeditions like I just went on to Antarctica. They also exist for Galapagos, Easter Island, Patagonia. Um, there are just some fantastic places where there aren't 10 million people and 50,000 people asking you to go buy in their stores. Um, there are lots of beaches that are in faraway places that are not that expensive. So what I do is I sit down and I listen. How do you like to travel? When you come back, what stories do you like to tell? You know, what are you gathering? Are you gathering stories? Do you like I happen to be a collector of hat pins. And so wherever I go, I try and get hat pins representing all the destinations, and I've got thousands of them. Um, but that's just my little thing. So for $2 to $10, I that's my memento. Some people collect plates, some people collect spoons, some people collect patches, some people are photographers, some people are musicians and they collect musical experiences. They go to a concert and they see a conductor and a choir they've never heard before, and now they've fallen in love. And so, what is it that you want to bring back and keep in this heart of yours and share with others? Because we've heard the stories from our grandparents, how they grew up and how they migrated to the United States, or how they developed their lives and their businesses, and we remember them because storytelling is fundamental to human communication. So what stories do you want to hold true for when you visit? So this is why the smaller ship allows you to focus on the destination and less on the vessel itself, less on a private island, and more. So when you go to the Caribbean and you come back, and my question was, well, how many Jamaicans did you meet? None.
Mm, yeah, most of the time,
How many Barbadians did you have a conversation with? None. And on a small ship, you have plenty of time to meet with people, learn their backstory. How did they gain their freedom or their independence? Learn all these things, and now you have a greater appreciation for a country that also has amazing natural assets like beaches and wonderful resorts and just fabulous things to see and do. So everywhere in the world, people live 12 months out of the year. So people always ask me, well, where's the best time to go? Well, the best time to go is when you can go. And when you're older, you have more time, you have more money. And time, by the way, is the one asset we all have an equal amount of. That nobody has any more than 60 minutes to an hour, and everybody in their life has so many days to a year. So if you don't spend that time on yourself, and part of that should be planning vacations to see other worlds, other communities, you never get it back. It is irrecoverable. You can't work twice as hard to get 4 more days. It just doesn't happen.
no.
Well, guess what? When you're 50 and you look at the timeline of life between 70 and 90, and now people are going to 100, but you're more than halfway through your life. And if you haven't paid yourself by taking a vacation, learning things that you've been putting off, I mean, hobbies like crocheting and quilting, all over the world, people do it. Photography, scuba diving. golf. These are all universal things that you can do. And the more you do it with other people, the richer your experience. It isn't experience what people want more than anything else. Do I want a surgeon that just got out of college or somebody that's been doing it successfully for 20 years? I don't want to be their first oops. So
Yeah.
experiencing the world makes you a richer person and gives you comparison and contrast. Just like we've been able to have these conversations, I can bring up my stories because I've lived them. I don't have to cite a book. I've been there. I want to give people that opportunity. And so my little slogan is make memories, not regrets. Because I don't want to see you at end of life regretting and bitter and always saying I wish I coulda, shoulda, woulda. Nobody did this. I didn't do that. I was all wound up in my work. I got colitis. I got a heart attack. I did all this other stuff. And then what I want you to do is I want you to have a community of people with common interests that you can share your stories with. And then when those movies roll around in your head, even if your communication skills aren't strong, your health doesn't allow you to run around as actively, but you can play those movies in here and feel good again. And you know when you've seen a good movie and you want to see it again and it makes you feel good, how about the movie you just produced yourself, right? That's what I want for people as they get older. I want them to talk about those experiences from such a deep connection to the world. We are so fortunate on this planet to have a wealth of things to see, to do, to engage with. And you're never going to do it from a book. You're never going to do it from a phone. I mean, honest to God, when you go on a trip and you see somebody doing this, and outside there's a flock of eagles flying by, it's irreconcilable to me. Put the dang thing down. Look out the window. Gain a new viewpoint, right? Everybody says, well, do you have internet access? And I go, why do you need it?
Well, the only
You'll
reason I would want internet access is I would love to go around the world and interview people. And
No,
that,
to that extent, and that's fine. And you will find, as I did, that in some of the more remote places of the world, like going to Africa and going into the Kruger National Park, there is better internet access there than I have in Denver.
oh, gee.
It's a fact. But don't look for it in Antarctica.
No, no. Well,
There's no internet access in Antarctica. Each of the research stations has wired communication that goes underneath the water to connect them. And they go, there's two ways you get there, either through South America or through Africa. And a couple of people actually go through New Zealand and Australia because actually Antarctica is reachable from everywhere. But the way I help people is that we do a lot of discovery. And so I charge a small fee for that because that is planning. And it's sort of like when you're doing estate planning, when you're doing education planning, you're doing everything else, you hire an architect to draw plans, you pay that person for their expertise. And then if you want me then to go help you book all that and put it together, I'm delighted to do that. And I work with you on all the contingencies to make that happen. And I think being on a ship, which essentially has a floating hotel component where you don't have to pack and unpack every day,
right.
makes the expedition or makes the travel easier. So you
Oh,
can do
yeah.
that on the rivers of the world. Easy. Like if you take the Danube River, you can see 8 countries in one river trip. You can
Wow.
actually go from Amsterdam to the Black Sea. Don't think you'd go to the Black Sea today, but you can go from Amsterdam to the Black Sea in 2 weeks and see every country along the Rhine, the Main, and the Danube River. It has all been connected now since the 1970s. You can take the Chobe River in Africa, the Zambezi River in Africa. Yes, you can't go to Russia now, but you can take river cruising in Russia. I took a river cruise in Vietnam and Cambodia, and it was amazing. The ship was built almost out of teak. Every room was enormous. There were only 14 cabins on the ship. Every cabin had its own jacuzzi hot tub. Didn't expect
Ooh,
that
no,
to be
that's
allowed.
a good way to travel.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So there are ways to see the world that are unbelievable. You can travel the canals of England and Ireland and France on what they call longboats, canal boats. And a family of, 8 or so can go on a longboat, and there's a captain and there's a cook, and you have your own bedroom. And a longboat only goes a couple miles an hour, but you're going through every little town in the countryside. Another way to see a country.
And the
You,
US
you
dollar goes farther in some of those countries as well. So
tons
you can.
farther. The Argentine peso, it was 100 pesos to a dollar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and by the way, we have rivers in the United States. So the Mississippi.
Mitch, I lost you somehow. Can you hear me? Mitch. Oh man.
The
There.
route of um oh gosh, I'm just thinking of the guys that found the Pacific Path. Their names just escape me, but all
Lewis and
along,
Clark?
yeah, Lewis and Clark. So you can follow that all along the river until you get out to the Pacific Ocean. There are river cruises that will do that. There are coastal cruises along the United States that are amazing. Coastal cruises up and down Canada. One of the places to go that almost nobody in the United States knows is the coastal Maritimes, where you go to see Newfoundland and King Edward Island, and oh my gosh, it is so beautiful, and it's not very far from New York. So beautiful places to see, beautiful things to do. Right now, I am helping people North America, South America, the Caribbean, um, getting involved because I'm a little concerned when we're in a conflict. I don't like people to go to places with uncertainty.
Correct.
So to me, safety is first and foremost. And there are a lot of my colleagues that are saying I'm being a little uber cautious. It's okay. The people in the ages I'm dealing with, I'll err on the side of uber caution. But for me right now, I'm keeping away from anywhere where I think it might flare up and it might escalate.
I
So
think Europe would be a good place to stay away from right now.
Western Europe, like you want to go
Western Europe would
to
be okay. Eastern Europe would
Western
be a
Europe right
problem.
now, but places, and it's sad because Eastern Europe after World War II has so much culture and history. Going to Austria, going to Poland, going to uh, uh, Slovakia, places you didn't even think of. But oh my heavens, the dress, the dance, the music, the equestrian capability. Just
I want
open your heart and mind.
Yes, indeed. And Mitch, I need to wrap this up, but I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you. That they go to KraytonTravel.com, right?
Krayton Travel, KRAYTON travel.com. Mitch at Krayton Travel. Please seek me out. KraytonTravel.com. You'll see I focus on small ship cruising. Send me an email. Always glad to do an introductory call at no charge. If you want me to help design a trip of a lifetime, it would be my honor. And like I say, it's the stories you tell me coming back that tell me that I'm successful. And so I don't work with everybody. I only want people that want somebody like me to be their travel concierge and to help them invest their money and their time to come back and make memories and not regrets. So
You and I may have to talk about England. So
it would be fine, Kevin. And you can have me back anytime. We'll talk about any destination you want to.
absolutely. So thank you, Mitch, for being here. Go to KraytonTravel.com and he will just talk to you for a while and he'll figure it out and you will have a great time. So Mitch, if you stay right there, I'll be right back. Thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of kmmedia.pro. Please visit our website, oddly enough, named kmmedia.pro, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to each other because each other's all we've got. We'll see you next time.